All right, Cowboys Nation, let's get into it because there's a lot to unpack with this Dallas defense right now. You watch them on Sundays, and it is the same story repeating itself over and over again. A four-man front almost every single snap, zone coverage behind it, and an opponent's quarterback who looks way too comfortable back there. And here's the crazy part. It is not like the Cowboys are terrible against the run. In fact, they actually handle the run pretty well. The issue comes when they get into third and long situations, moments when you would expect the pass rush to tee off and close the drive, but instead quarterbacks are standing tall, scanning the field, and delivering chunk plays because there is zero disruption. It is frustrating because the defense is being asked to win with execution alone, but execution cannot mask a scheme that has become predictable. When you're rushing 4 on nearly every single play and dropping 7 in a zone, opposing offenses know exactly what is coming. The statistics back it up. Dallas is near the very bottom of the league in almost every major pass rush category. The pressure rate is low, the sack totals are embarrassingly low, and even the time to pressure is among the worst in the NFL. That means quarterbacks are getting all day to throw, and when you combine that with a secondary that is living in zone coverage more than 90% of the time, you create a recipe for disaster. The numbers are brutal. Nearly 10 yards allowed per attempt in zone. Last in yards per game allowed through the air. Bottom tier in yards per play. Near the basement in expected points added and success rate. When you put all of this together, you start to realize that the Cowboys' issues are not about one weak link, not about one mistake here or there. It is systemic. It is the marriage between scheme and personnel that is simply not working. That is where the frustration grows because fans keep hearing the same words from the coaching staff. Simplify. Focus on execution. Stay the course. But simplifying the scheme does not automatically solve the problem. This defense is already simple. For men up front, sit back in zone. It is not complex. The real issue is that the players on this roster are not built to thrive in that type of system. Trayvon Diggs is at his best when he can jump routes, be aggressive, and bait quarterbacks into mistakes. But if the pass rush is not getting home, quarterbacks have all the time in the world to wait for routes to develop and throw over the top of him. Donovan Wilson is being asked to play deep coverage like he is Malik Hooker, but that is not his game. Wilson is a box safety. He is at his best near the line of scrimmage, not 30 yards downfield trying to track receivers. You even look at Kyle, a guy who struggled in zone concepts in Buffalo, and now he's being plugged into the same system here in Dallas that exposes the exact same flaws. So what happens? Miscommunication. Big plays down the field. Safeties out of position. Corners guessing and getting beat. Linebackers looking a step slow in coverage. And the end result is a defense that is ranked near the bottom across the board. If you want to talk about changes, you have to start with the defensive line. This obsession with sticking to a strict four-man front has to loosen up. There needs to be more variety. You cannot just line up with the same look 80+% of the time and expect it to work. Mix in stunts, twists, overloads. Make quarterbacks feel uncomfortable. Right now, they are too comfortable. The Cowboys have generated pressure with 4 only a handful of times, and when the pressure does come, it is rarely converted into sacks. That tells you the approach is not working. And this leads us to personnel decisions that are overdue. How is JV and Clowney still not playing meaningful snaps? It makes no sense. The defensive end rotation has been underwhelming across the board. Dante Fowler has not been impactful. Sam Williams has flashed in the past, but this season he has not made noise. Ezraku is still learning. James Houston has shown flashes, but barely sees the field. You cannot tell me this defense would not benefit from Clowney's physical presence and ability to disrupt. At this point, it is obvious he needs to be on the field. The secondary is another headache. You cannot just roll out the same combinations and expect the communication issues to magically disappear. Darren Bland is clearly a starter. That part is not in question. Trayvon Diggs, even on a pitch count, is going to be treated as the other starting corner. But in the slot, in nickel looks, the experiment with Elam has been a problem. He looks uncomfortable, the same way he looked uncomfortable in Buffalo, and opponents are targeting him with success. Maybe it is time to push Bland back outside and try someone else inside. Maybe it is time to give Reddy Stewart a longer look. The point is, sticking with the same rotation while the coverage breaks down week after week is not a solution. And then we get to linebacker, which might be the most frustrating position group of all. Coaches always talk about competition, about letting the best players earn their snaps. But where is that competition? Brian Schottenheimer said Maurice Luefeu was earning more playing time after week 1. Since then, his snaps have barely moved. Meanwhile, Kenneth Murray and Jack Sanborn are playing heavy reps despite not making standout plays. Damone Clark is out there, but has not been consistent. Why not give Luefeu more snaps when he was arguably your second-best linebacker down the stretch last season? Why not shake up the rotation when the current group is clearly not delivering? The refusal to even try new combinations feels like stubbornness, and stubbornness is costing this defense. Even at safety, there is room to experiment. Malik Hooker has been fine, but Donovan Wilson has been shaky in coverage. If the commitment is truly to play so much too high in quarters coverage, then maybe it is time to try Wanya Thomas back there. Maybe it is time to see what you have in players like Marquise Bell again, instead of burying them on the bench. Because if you keep rolling out the same duo, you're going to keep getting the same results, and those results have been poor. The larger issue here is a coach unwilling to bend. Matt Eberflus has been consistent in his philosophy, but sometimes consistency becomes predictability. Every coach says they will adjust their scheme to fit their players, but there is no evidence that Dallas is doing that. Right now, it feels like the players are being forced into roles that do not maximize their strengths. And until that changes, it is hard to see how the defense improves. This is where Cowboys fans are stuck. They can see the problems clearly. The numbers do not lie. The performances on the field confirm it. And yet the answers from the coaching staff are vague, full of talk about execution and focus without actual adjustments. Something has to give. If the front four cannot generate pressure, then blitz more. If zone coverage is getting picked apart, mix in more man. If veterans are not producing, give the young guys a shot. Because staying the same is a recipe for failure. And right now, failure is exactly what this defense looks like. When you watch this Cowboys defense right now, it almost feels like you are watching a unit stuck in quicksand. The harder they try to push, the deeper they sink. You hear talk about communication breakdowns and execution errors, but those things are only symptoms of a larger issue. The foundation of what this defense is being asked to do is shaky. Opponents have already figured out the tendencies. They know Dallas is not going to bring extra rushers. They know Dallas is going to sit back in zone almost every single time. That knowledge makes life incredibly easy for offensive coordinators and quarterbacks. All they have to do is keep drives alive long enough to find the weak link. And unfortunately, there's several weak links being exposed week after week. It is not like the Cowboys lack talent. That is what makes it so maddening. There are players here who can make a difference if used correctly. Trayvon Diggs is not being put in the type of situations where he could be the playmaker we know he is. Bland has been forced to cover ground in a system that does not give him much help. The safeties are miscast, and the defensive line rotation is inconsistent at best. That is why fans keep banging the table for Clowney to get real snaps. He is not a long-term future piece, but right now he can help you. He can set an edge, he can collapse a pocket, and he can bring some nastiness that has been missing. When your defense cannot generate pressure and is near the bottom of the league in sack rate, it feels criminal to keep a proven veteran on the sideline. Another part of the frustration comes from seeing other teams around the league adapt on the fly. You watch a good defense, and you see constant adjustments. They disguise looks, they throw in blitzes from unexpected angles, they rotate personnel based on matchups. With Dallas, it feels static. Quarterbacks line up and immediately know what they are facing. And once that predictability sets in, it becomes nearly impossible to win. That is why third down is such a nightmare. The Cowboys' defense does well enough on early downs to create third and longs, but when the critical moment comes, the opponent converts because there is no creativity in the rush or coverage. Linebacker play only magnifies the problem. Kenneth Murray looks like a step behind the play too often. Jack Sanborn has not been sharp in space. Damone Clark flashes athleticism, but then misses assignments. And meanwhile, a player like Luefeu, who showed down the stretch last season that he could be trusted, is barely on the field. It feels like the coaches made up their minds about the rotation before the season even started, and nothing has changed despite the evidence piling up that it is not working. Real competition means giving players a legitimate chance to earn more time, and right now, that has not been the case. The back end of the secondary is just as concerning. You can sense the frustration with Wilson because he's trying to fill a role that does not suit him. When you ask a box safety to play deep coverage against quarterbacks who have all day in the pocket, it is setting him up to fail. Hooker has been more reliable, but even he's been exposed because there is no consistent pass rush in front of him. Opposing quarterbacks are taking deep shots with confidence because they know there is no fear of getting hit as they throw. If you're going to insist on playing such a high percentage of two deep looks, then at least try Thomas or give Bell another opportunity. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same mistakes and hoping for different results. And then we come to corner. The numbers tell the story here, too. Elam has been targeted heavily and has not responded well. His instincts in zone simply are not sharp enough to survive when quarterbacks have time to exploit him. Bland has been the most dependable, and Diggs, even when not at full strength, has to be on the field. That leaves a question mark at the other spot, and so far the Cowboys have not provided a good answer. Stewart has quietly been solid in limited opportunities. He does not give you big splash plays, but he has been steadier than Elam. At some point, you have to consider that stability might be the better option, even if it means shuffling the rotation again. It is not just about individuals, though. The bigger story is how mismatched the system is for the personnel. You cannot keep hammering a square peg into a round hole and then act surprised when it does not fit. Eberflus has been determined to run his scheme no matter what, but this defense is screaming for flexibility. You cannot waste the talent you do have by asking them to play roles that highlight their weaknesses. Adjustments have to be made. Think about what happens if this continues as is. The Cowboys' offense is already under pressure to carry the team. If the defense remains this predictable and ineffective, every single week becomes a shootout. And in the NFL, you cannot rely on winning shootouts consistently. Eventually, you run into a quarterback who will carve you up, or your own offense has a down day, and suddenly you are staring at a loss that never should have happened. That is the path Dallas is on if nothing changes. There is still time, and that is the positive side of this. We are not talking about a team without talent. We're talking about a team that needs to rethink its approach. Mix in pressure packages. Give young guys a chance. Sit veterans who are not producing. Play Clowney. Experiment with alignments up front. Move players around in the secondary until you find combinations that work. The season is long, but every week that passes without making changes is another week of wasted potential. Cowboys fans deserve to see a defense that is aggressive, disruptive, and capable of closing out games. Right now, they are watching a unit that looks hesitant, predictable, and unable to get off the field. That cannot continue. The longer it does, the more this team risks falling short of its potential. The answers are not complicated, but they require a willingness to break out of the comfort zone, to step away from the rigid system, and instead focus on what the players actually do best. Until that happens, this defense will remain exactly what it has been so far, a frustrating mix of talent and missed opportunity. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In what could be one of the most shocking moves of the offseason, the Dallas Cowboys have reportedly set the sports world ablaze by announcing Shedeur Sanders as their new starting quarterback. The news, still circulating as a tantalizing rumor, has left fans and analysts alike scrambling to make sense of the potential seismic shift in the league's quarterback landscape. Sources close to the organization claim the decision came after a series of intense internal discussions, as the Cowboys allegedly weighed veteran experience against the raw, electrifying talent that Sanders brings to the table. Sanders, known for his laser-precise passing and uncanny ability to read defenses, has been generating buzz since his college days, but few expected him to land in such a high-profile NFL slot so early in his career. While the Cowboys have a history of calculated risks, this move might represent their boldest gamble yet. Insiders suggest that team management sees in Sanders not just a quarterback, but a franchise-altering player capable of redefining the Cowboys' offensive identity for years to come. The rumor mill is spinning fast, with fans flooding social media with a mix of excitement, skepticism, and outright disbelief. If this is true, it changes everything, tweeted one prominent NFL analyst, reflecting the sentiment across the league. The Cowboys' playbook, long dominated by conventional schemes, could soon feature the dynamic, high-octane approach that Sanders is famous for, potentially making Dallas an even more formidable force in a fiercely competitive NFC. Critics, however, caution against getting swept up in the hype. Questions remain about Sanders' ability to handle the pressure and scrutiny of a market as intense as Dallas, and whether his transition from college star to NFL leader can be seamless. Yet, the mere suggestion of his arrival has already sparked speculation about trades, team strategy, and the domino effect this could trigger across the league. While official confirmation remains elusive, one thing is clear. If Shedeur Sanders truly dons the Cowboys uniform, the NFL might be on the verge of witnessing the birth of its next superstar, and Dallas could very well be at the center of an unprecedented football spectacle. Fans are advised to keep their eyes glued to headlines, because in the world of NFL rumors, the line between speculation and reality can blur faster than a quarterback's pass under pressure. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.